Sean here with BaseMint Comics, and it is time for a Corner Box Classics. So there's some new folks to the channel. Corner Box Classics is, if you watched the room tour video, I've been collecting comics nonstop for almost 35 years now, I think. Or it's getting there, might be at 33 or something like that. Anyways, so I've amassed quite the Marvel collection. And a few years and years ago, I did a complete read through of all of my X-Men stuff. And when I was done with that, I was like, hey, I missed the Avengers and the Fantastic Four and Spider-Man and stuff. So I was like, what I'll do is I'll just start reading those year to year. And I found myself kind of like I'd read 12 issues of Spider-Man and then kind of forget what happened in the 12 issues of Fantastic Four I had read, a couple weeks prior, because I was going through these that way. So then I was like, oh, hey, when the channel came about, I was like, hey, I started the whole thing because I wanted to bike to the shop with my son and kind of document that for him and I. And then I was like, hey, well, I can arrange the way I'm reading because I'd get to some stuff like, for instance, like I enjoy the Defenders, but not nearly as much as I enjoy everything else. And so it's like when I'd hit those 12 issues of Defenders, I'd be like, oof. And they could start to kind of fall by the wayside. And so the way to kind of shake that up and help me as I get older remember some of this stuff was, hey, I'll read the books as though I was biking up to the shop during that time period. So I've started this in 61 with the Fantastic Four, and then kind of started pulling everything in as we go. And I think in the channel, the Corner Box Classic starts with October of 81. And I am up to April 6th, 1982. So if you're familiar to the channel, I'm sorry for the re-explanation of what this is, but like Stan said, everybody's comic is somebody's first. So April 6th, 1982, if I had biked up to the shop with money, this is what I would have picked up. So first up, and a book that I was super excited about seeing, because this has been in my collection a long time. That's part of the other thing too, is like I would go to shows and stuff, and all the shows around here when I was a kid growing up getting comics were like dollar bins or quarter boxes, 50-cent bins, or 10 for $3 or whatever, so you'd amass a lot, and then it's like, oh, I'm reading this other stuff, and stuff starts to, so this kind of gives me the ability to read everything in my collection and decide what I want to keep and what I want to pass on to the kids in the neighborhood via Halloween trick-or-treating, because we set up a spinner rack at the end of the driveway and pass out comic books and candy. Anyway, Avengers 221, New Blood, released April 6, 1982, written by David Michelini, art by Bob Hall, inks by Brett Breeding, letters by Janice Chang, and colors by Christy Scheel. And that was always a pretty, I was always intrigued by this one, just because I'm a big X-Men guy, and Wolverine and Dazzler were on the cover. But the other thing I noticed about this is I'm very curious, because I was recently like reorganizing some stuff and going through, it was because of Avengers 800 with Bendis' return. I was looking through some of my old, my Bendis run of the Avengers, and then when I saw this cover, when it was kind of hanging out where I have them staged for reading, I was like, there are a lot of characters in this that wound up in Bendis' New Avengers. So I'm very curious, and if I were ever to meet him again, I am thinking about possibly being like, hey, did you draw any inspiration? Like, was this your time period of reading comics? Did you draw in like anything from this? Anyways, I'm getting lost here in the weeds on this one. It was a fun one. It is you know, being kind of like mired in the X-Men growing up and really only like dabbling in the rest of the Marvel Universe, if like Colors or something hit me, but not really being like a monthly reader. Like when I first got into comics and was going to the shop, it was pretty much strictly for X-Men books, anything with an X on it. It was the 90s. And the occasional Spider-Man, or if like the X-Men characters were in, you know, and then like I said, when I'd go to shows and stuff and you could get stuff on the cheap, that's when I'd kind of start building runs of Avengers and Fantastic Four and all that type of stuff. So a pattern I've noticed is that like what the X-Men playing baseball is to them and me, I'm imagining that for an Avengers fan, the issues where they decide to pick new members might have a similar feel. So this one is basically just, you know, Thor, Wasp, Cap, and Iron Man are now deciding that they need some new blood in the team. And they kind of all split out to go recruit some new members. And a conversation between Thor and Jarvis actually sparks Thor to seek out Spider-Man, and that was probably my favorite part of the issue. Like, I found it incredibly endearing that like the god of the team was drawn to the heroics of Peter Parker, even though he's reading a time, like what kind of sparks it is the conversation with Jarvis and the fact that he's reading a Time magazine with Spider-Man on the cover. That's very J. Jonah-esque because it's like Spider-Man, threat or menace. You can obviously, you know, see that there. So that was cool for me, just in that regard. And then kind of like Janet puts together a list of lady characters in Thor that she wants to kind of have over for brunch or whatever to kind of interview them. And Thor and Spidey chatted up about this. And there's a Iron Man and Cap go to Cross Technologies and kind of like hit up Hawkeye, and Hawkeye in typical Clint Barton fashion is just like, well, you guys think I'm just sitting around waiting to become a member of the Avengers again? And you know, so he's like, he basically is like, screw off. And then quickly realizes the error in his ways and agrees to come back to the team. And while all this is going on outside of the mansion, there was like a kid who was kind of like trying to attack the Avengers a few issues ago to like make a name for himself. He's clearly plotting another go around. And you know, so the ladies that Wasp is invited over: Spider-Woman, Dazzler, Invisible Woman, Black Widow, and finally She-Hulk. So this kid, I can't think, Fabian Stankiewicz, yeah, he shows up, and the ladies make quick work of him. It's more played for like comedic of this dude just like not getting it, that he is not an Avengers level threat. So you kind of get this, you know, the gals of Marvel teaming up to take on this kind of idiot. And then Henry Peter Gyrick catches wind of this that's going on, and there's a funny little like Hawkeye's coming to the mansion, She-Hulk's they're kind of both on the way there, and they have a run-in that's not great and played for kind of laughs. Bob Hull's pencils are fantastic as per usual, and the team is set. It's now a great team of Thor, Captain America, She-Hulk, Wasp, Hawkeye, and Iron Man, which is a pretty solid crew of Avengers. So no major threats in this, but just kind of a fun issue, and I adore those type of issues. Like, I just like, not everything has to be a cosmic threat. Not everything has to be an event. Things can just be fun, and that's great. I love it. Okay, I don't think Incredible Hulk 273, once a Hulk, always a Hulk. April 6, 1982, written by Bill Mantlo, with pencils by the great and sadly late, just recent days ago, Sal Buscema, letters by Jim Novak, and colors by Bob Sharon. I think this might be, like, in my Hulk section. I'm not a big Hulk guy. It's never connected with me. I have some issues. If you've seen the tour of the room, there's a 60s spinner rack that I have, which is like all X-Men stuff. And then sort of like when X-Men was canceled with issue 65, I have in it all of the issues that are X-Men appearances during that time period where they didn't have a title of their own. Like if Iceman shows up in Strange Tales, if Magneto attacks Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver in Avengers, that's in there. Beast and Amazing Adventures, and there are a few Incredible Hulk issues in there because Juggernaut will occasionally get in a punch up with him. I know Avalanche had to go with him once, and there is an issue that introduces Dr. Peter Corbeau's first appearances in Hulk, Peter Corbeau to me is X-Men adjacent, so it still counts. Maybe one day I will go into. I was thinking about talking about it a little bit on Wednesday, but I kind of mentioned it a little bit here. There was a time period where Marvel really put the X-Men in a box because of movie rights, and I hated it. I got very upset about this, and kind of didn't really, sort of stopped. Like kind of, this is 2015, 16, 17, something like that. And I kind of bailed on the rest of the Marvel Universe and just started got rid of some stuff so that I could get some of these appearances that felt sort of X-Men adjacent, and that would have fallen into that time period. Anyways, all of this is to say I have a few smattering issues of, obviously, I don't have Incredible Hulk 180, 181, because that's way out of my wheel. I know it looks like, but these are all like back issue bins. They're not, those are reprints. So anyways, it's a long way to say that in the Corner Box Classics, you will see smatterings of Hulk issues because I don't have a complete run up until Peter David. And then I have the Peter David run, which I've never read, but I love Peter David's work in the X universe, in the Spider-Man universe. Love lots of his Star Trek stuff. Tigerheart, which is a reimagining of Peter Pan. Anyways, a big Peter David fan. And so I was like, wow. And I've always steered away from the Hulk because it's not my favorite, but I was like, hey, I'll give this a shot. And thankfully, I had finished the run. I think I was picking up the last couple of issues from my shop. I go in there and my shop is really good at not just getting a collection and dumping everything, but they'll kind of hold some stuff back. So if I'm buying up some Peter David Hulks, they'll be like, hey, we've got more of those back at the house or wherever the rest of the stuff. It's not everything goes out at once. They're kind of like, oh, hey, you're interested in those? We'll put some more out every Wednesday so you can find some. And that's always fun. So that's sort of how I did it. And I think it was I biked up to the shop, picked up the last of the Peter David issues that I needed, and got the news when I got home that he had passed. And it was sad, but I was happy that I had completed that before that happened. Anyways, that's all to say that, hey, here's the first issue of Incredible Hulk that's showing up in Corner Box Classics, and I'm pretty sure that I grabbed this in a dollar bin at some dirt con when I was a child because that cover looks fun. And so I don't have everything else that I'm kind of reading is sort of sequentially, and I know what's going on afterwards, and I have some idea of what's happening before. Not a clue. I went into this blind, but was happy because I was reading this the night that I learned that the great Sal Buscema had passed, and so I was very excited to read one of his Hulks, because that was, for me, Sal is Peter Parker, Spectacular Spider-Man, and I saw in a lot of people's memoriams and remembrances of him is how much they loved his Hulk. And so I was like, oh, I have really no concept of that. So hey, this was exciting. And it was also great because I have a complete run right here of Alpha Flight. I actually just finished it the other day with the help of a friend of mine. I was missing 2 issues from the very tail end of Volume 1 and wrapped that up because Alpha Flight, obviously, again, this shows my X-Men mania. They were introduced in X-Men, and I love John Byrne, so I was like, hey, why not? And, you can get a run of Alpha Flight for pennies. But Sasquatch is in the book, and clearly they were fighting a Wendigo. That's always fun. It's snowy as hell in the area that I live, so I always enjoy snowing or reading like snowy stories, and there's quite a few in this stack, which is interesting because the books came out in April, so clearly they were working on them back then. Anyways, I'm getting lost in the weeds here. Something happened that made Banner aware that he is the Hulk, and it's not like Professor Hulk or my understanding of it, but he's just sort of like Banner's in there and he gets what's going on. And he is just now figured out like, hey, I'm Banner inside of the Hulk. Like, I've got my wits about me. I thought that was pretty interesting. It was one of the angles of David's run that I was looking forward to reading. So I thought that was kind of nice that this first one that I cracked open for Cornerbox Classics kind of had that going on. Obviously, as per usual, some, government goons are after Banner. Anyways, there's some other stuff kind of going on. This is going to be the worst. It's, I don't really know, because this is the like, as a kid, if I had picked this up off the rack, I would have had no idea what was going on. But basically, Banner's like, I'm sick of this, and he gets out of there. And then it cuts to Banner's laboratory, and there's a woman named Barit there. And I recognize this name from hearing people talk about Hulk stories, but I have that is lost on me. And maybe it's a name that popped up. I know, so David's run is in there, and I was loving pretty much all of the Marvel Universe during the time period when Planet Hulk happened. Planet Hulk and World War Hulk and stuff like that. So, I got some of those. But, I don't have... my wealth of Incredible Hulk knowledge is not overflowing. So there's some stuff going on with them where I believe it might be Rick Jones is suffering from gamma poisoning or something like that. So Barit is trying to help him. And while all of this is going on, Hulk kind of lands somewhere as he's taken off from there, thinking about all this. Helps some loggers knock down some trees, and he starts to be like, hey, this is great. Doing good stuff as Hulk is fun. And so he stumbles upon this town, and I will also say this, I have seen clips and maybe 1 or 2 episodes of the Lou Ferrigno show as a child, but that was well before my time, and well before things were getting, packaged and put out on DVD as complete series or whatever. So I don't have much of a, I've seen a couple of the Doctor Strange, Thor, made for TV movie thing that they did or whatever. But I don't have, my older brothers probably have plenty of recollections of Ferrigno's Hulk, but it was just a little bit below my time. And like I said, not a character that I like in Defenders, but I never much sought out his solo series. Anyways, this sort of feels like what I've heard that the show, Banner just he changes from being the Hulk and is walking around, stumbles upon this town that has sandbags up, and then a bunch of guys grab him, and it turns out that they're farmers who have noticed an alien spaceship has shown up, and it's unleashed these insectoid bug creatures, and these bug creatures are eating all their crops, and so they are attacking the crops, and they're getting blasted by these guys, and they're like destroying the weapons. They're not killing the people. They're like destroying the sickles and the guns that they're aiming at the insects. And like Banner's like, what in the hell is going on? And this this old lady like grabs that and starts charging after him, and she's like, well, I'm either going to get killed by these alien invaders that are destroying our crops, or I'm going to starve to death because they're destroying our crops. So I have to do something. And so Hulk decides like, yeah, I'm going to help him out, I'm going to get into this. And he starts giving them the lefts and rights, and eventually like jumps onto their ship, rips open their ship, starts attacking them, and winds up like punching one of them through a transparent screen, and it shatters, and out pours this seed. And quickly like Hulk is talked to telepathically by like the main alien from here, and he explains that like their world was attacked and their soil has been ruined, so they go to other planets that have the food that they need, like the wheat or whatever that they need, consume it, but then offer this seed that they have that like grows back and grows back and grows back and would feed your people for a millennia. But the rub is that you came in here and smashed up the joint. You expose this to oxygen, and therefore it's not going to work. And so like the insects are basically like, way to be a dumbass. And like I have issues with it because the bugs should have probably, like, the humans heard him explaining this too, and it's like, well, why didn't you just try that first before just eating their crops? I don't know. Comics. So that was that issue. I do not know if I have number 274. And I can't, so I don't know if there's an issue here and there before we get to Peter David's run. So that's that. There you go. Incredible Hulk. Marvel Fanfare number 3, Into the Land of Death, released April 6th, 1982. First story, the main story, the story that I bought this issue for, is written by Chris Claremont, pencils by Dave Cockrum, inks by Bob McLeod, letters by Jim Novak, and colors by Glynis Wein or Glynis Oliver. There's a backup story called Swashbucklers that's written by Charlie Boster, pencils by Trevor Von Eden, inks by Joseph Rubenstein, letters by Jim Novak, and colors by Ed Hannigan. This is a continuation, obviously, of the first 2 issues. Angel and Peter Parker were contacted by Sauron's girlfriend, Tanya Anderson, because she saw a picture of him in a story that was done on Khazar and the Savage Land. She saw like a picture of Karl Lycos. She's been searching for him forever. So this one is a classic X-Men trope that opens up with like them trying to enter the Savage Land, and things happen with the Blackbird that make it difficult to land. Storm does this great thing where she basically like, I mean, look at that. That's a great panel by the great Dave Cockrum. She basically obviously uses her power to help land it without crashing it. Then we get the recap of Angel explaining what's going on because the X-Men haven't been in the first 2 issues. So you get a 2-page great recap of, hey, they tried to turn us into crazy monsters, and then our heroes are quickly affected by an earthquake, go into the Savage Land, and then are obviously attacked by Vertigo and Barbarous and the usual gang, and they get overpowered. Sauron shows up, and our heroes are once again like, now they're like, hey, we're going to do the thing that we did to Angel and Peter Parker to you. And then it ends with Angel stumbling upon some character that we don't know who it is, and won't know until maybe next month. I think Marvel Fanfare might have been every other month, but that's where the to be continued comes off. And so then the backup story is Hawkeye's working with Cross Technology Enterprises, and the Aguila is trying to break in, and Hawkeye stops him. So it's a fight between these two as Hawkeye is you know, obviously still head of security for Cross Enterprises, but realizes that, like, hey, I probably should have been on these guys' side because one of the people who works in Cross Technology Enterprises is a bad dude. And so then it becomes a team up when basically Clint threatens this dude at the very end of it. Like, your guy gets away and Clint is basically like, hey, I'm Hawkeye, I'm the boss. I enjoy Marvel Fanfare. I have like the issues where X-Men characters pop up and a few other, like, I know there's a really classic, like, Black Widow George Perez story that I have, a couple Thing appearances, maybe one or two. But it is not a book that I have found easily. And I think as a kid, I think I would have, like, I'd be like, oh, I don't have a complete run of Marvel Fanfare, I should get one. And I think where I'm at now, where, like, my collecting brain is now, is like, I'd rather look through it and figure out who the creatives are on the issues and pick based on that rather than character. And that shows personal growth, because when I was a child, I only cared about the characters and I didn't even realize that they were created by people. I just thought it was like a Disney thing where it was like, I don't know, you learn as you grow up. So that's so Marvel Fanfare too, much like Incredible Hulk, is like, I'm trying to think. I think it's gotta be here somewhere. There's Holiday. Oh, hey, got it right here. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, 1 and 2. Oh, 4 is up there. I was like, where's 4? 4, I have a, next to my bed, we bought these great shelves for Henry that are like this wide, and they're for little kid books. And when I bought them for his nursery, I was like, I'm gonna get some of these for me. So I have like 4 or 5 of them. They fit like side by side. They're like this wide, so they're perfect for comic books. So I have them on the wall above my nightstand. Is just a like 4 of these, and I just have comics, so they're stacked in like month ways, and that's how I do that's how I keep track of the Corner Box Classics. Yeah, and then we got the George Perez one there, and so this would totally be like, I like the Vision and I saw this in a quarter bin, so I grabbed it. Or look at this Fantastic Thing cover. Of course I'm going to pick that up in a quarter bin. So yeah, that's kind of where that looks like a fun Submariner story. So this is sort of where my Power Pack. I love the Power Pack. So yeah, so that is it when it comes to Marvel Fanfare. So, you know, not a series that I have collected, but as I've been enjoying them, I'm like, oh, I should look at the creative teams for who's on some of those issues and see if there's anything that I want to check out. There's an Iron Man one that I have in Iron Man continuity because that's how it fits. And that's how my weirdness goes. Marvel Superheroes Contest of Champions number 2, Frenzy in the Frozen North, released April 6, 1982. Plot by Mark Grunwald and Stephen Grant. Written by Mill Mantlo. Pencils by John Romita Jr. Inks by Pablo Marcos. Letters by Joseph Rosen. And colors by Michelle Wolfman and Christy Scheel. You know, this is what it is. It's the Contest of Champions. It's the unknown versus the Grandmaster. They've picked teams. If the Grandmaster's team wins, the unknown will restore his dead brother to life. If he loses, the gamesman will join the gamesman will join his brother in oblivion. That's all you need, and it throws a bunch of characters together. Some I have no idea of who they are, and I had to bust out the official handbook of the Marvel Universe to figure out who some of these characters are. And so, you know, it is fun in the best possible comic book way of like, I don't really think there's any stakes here. It's all going to get wrapped up in a nice little bow, but you get to see characters interact. Like, I never, ever, ever thought that I would see a team consisting of Sue Storm, the Invisible Woman, Sunfire, and Iron Fist. So, like, stuff like that. Plus, it's drawn by, like, John Romita Jr., and it's great. And so, it is just fun of them trying to find these, like, game pieces, basically, to decide which team wins. And so the Grandmasters team wins the first game, and then the second one is it is Sabra, Arabian Knight, and Iron Man versus Defensor, She-Hulk, and Captain Britain. Like, that's two teams I'd never put together. This is legitimately like you're hanging out with your best friend with your box of Marvel action figures. You dump it out on the floor, you pick teams, and you go at it. And that is in a 3-issue, fun, beautifully drawn comic. Like, come on. This is like perfect fodder for like a sunny day. You've, got some nice glass of water, and you're out laying on the grass, sun shining, clouds rolling by, and you're just watching some superheroes duke it out. So in that one, the Unknowns team wins. So it's 1-1 at the end of 2. Maybe it's not 1-1. I don't recall exactly. I don't know if it was like there was a score yet at the end of the first one. I'll have to go back and take a look. Actually, I probably could look right now, because I think when I'm done reading them, I put them back in here. And sure enough, issue number 1 is right here. But it's fun. I didn't even know about that until I was doing the big, like, compiling the X-Men appearances for everything. And I was like, how did I miss this? Anyways, speaking of X-Men characters and their appearances in other books, Rom Spaceknight number 32, Choosing Sides, released April 6, 1982, written by Bill Mantlo, with pencils by the great and sadly late Sal Buscema, inks by Joe Sinnott, letters by Rick Parker, and colors by Ben Shawn. This is great. 2 Sal Buscema books in 1 week. I do not collect Rom regularly. The only time I have a Rom issue is if an X-Men character shows up in it. And this one deals with Hybrid going after the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. And our last issue ended with the 3 ladies from the Brotherhood, Rogue, Destiny, and Mystique, being attacked by Hybrid. And then you get a 2-page recap of how Hybrid came to be. That a dire wraith had shape-changed into a human, had a relationship with a woman, fell in love with her, they had a child, and Hybrid, unfortunately, is the child who is now sort of taken over. All of this, you get a beautiful recap there, but they also acknowledge the fact that if you want to dive deeper into this story, and I did, it appears in Rom 17 and 18, which take place directly after Uncanny X-Men number 144, because this is where they're filed in my room. And this is something that I think, as I was reading this, I was like, this is something that I miss. You know how many comics Marvel sold to me as a kid? You know how many times I got home, read a book, and saw some editor's note that was like, hey, to learn more, check out Iron Man number 187. And I'd be like, editor, I do want to check out more. And so I'd, cut some grass, get some extra money, pedal up to the bike, or pedal up to the shop the next time, and I'd try to find that Iron Man 187, because I wanted to know more. And I don't think enough of that is done. And I like that there's recap pages. Like, hey, if you don't want to do that, you don't have to. You don't have to go out and search out Rom 17 and 18. You've got this recap page that basically explains it. I dig that. I miss that. I don't think that's done enough in comics now. And you think they do, and I don't know how this is done, because I do not read anything digitally. So if you do read digital comics, could you let me know? Because I think that if there was an editor note in a paper comic, that digitally it should be like a hyperlink to purchase or download that issue. Maybe? I don't know. But they're leaving coins on the table, and we know the mouse likes to make money. So while they're duking it out with Dire Wraiths, they suddenly realize, like, hey, we both hate Rom. Let's team up. So now this is Rom Spaceknight team up. Then it cuts to the torpedo dude or whatever. who was attacked by the Dire Wraith, kind of explaining his situation to Rom. And there's this chick that Rom is into, and this dude who is like, he's into the chick. I think they're boyfriend and girlfriend. I don't know, because I don't read Rom regularly, but that's the impression here that I get. And this dude is like not thrilled that Rom's around, and it makes me laugh, because like, dude, Rom's a robot. Like, I don't think you have anything to worry about. I don't think your gal's gonna leave you for this weird space night. Maybe not. I don't know. Anyways, so, you know, Torpedo's like, I can't go after him. And Rom's like, don't worry about it. This is my fight. Clearly, because his name's on the cover. So he blasts off. Some goons show up at the house and plan on doing some pretty awful things to the ladies that they see inside. I wasn't too worried about the goons, because the ladies inside are Rogue, Mystique, and Destiny. And I'm pretty sure they could take care of a couple... I believe dudes that escaped from prison. So, you know, bad dudes, but, you know, Rogue and Mystique, just, you can, like, Destiny could just stand in the corner and be like, have at it, and Rogue and Mystique would take care of this. But they don't have to, because Hybrid shows up, and he strips the skin off of them. I mean, look at those dopes, just skeletons just dangling in the air. So clearly, like, Rogue, Mystique, and Destiny at this point are like, maybe a team up is a bad idea, because I don't think this dude is going to want to, like, the second we do what he wants to do and defeat Rom, he's turning on us. So this is very smart on their part. You don't need Destiny's precognitive abilities at this point to figure that one out. So, you know, quickly they realize the problem here is that they can't do this, so they got to team up with Rom. And Rogue tries to steal some of Rom's powers and realizes he's a good guy. And she's sort of, this is the reason I have these Rom issues in here, is because of the Rogue appearances, and because it kind of like, this is where some of her turning against Destiny and Mystique kind of takes place. Like, this is where her... From Avengers Annual 10, her first appearance where she is a Brotherhood of Evil Mutant, this is where you start to get her realizing, like, hey, I'd like to be one of the good guys, and her turn into becoming an X-Men. And there's even a panel in here, which I laughed out loud at, because, like, they're planning, like, Destiny's like, we gotta split, man. Like, let the Dire Wraith, let Hybrid and Rom duke it out. We can get out of here. And Rogue's like, leave Rom? No, we've got to help him. And then Mystique hits him with the Rogue. Need I remind you that we are evil mutants? And I just thought that was funny, because the whole evil mutant thing, like labeling yourself an evil mutant. It was of the time, I understand it. So Rogue obviously goes to help. And, you know, Mystique then shapeshifts into a character to help distract him. So they all wind up helping, and they wind up defeating Hybrid, and the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants take off. But the point is that in this, you start to see Rogue question whether or not she wants to be an evil mutant. So 31 and 32 of Rom Spaceknight are fun, but not a series that I'm going to go out and get everything for. There is an annual coming up, though, that I'm pretty excited about, because it looks like Rom takes on Gladiator. It's like number 5 from like 84. So you have that to look forward to when I get to 1984. So up next, Night Screams, released April 6, 1982. This is Uncanny X-Men number 159, written by Chris Claremont. Fantastic pencils by Bill Sienkiewicz, inks by Bob McLeod, letters by Tom Orzechowski, and colors by Glennis Ween Oliver. And so... I talked a little bit about Misty Knight being in Daredevil and Punisher Devil's Trigger this past Wednesday on New Comic Book Day. And here we have our X-Men heroes arriving at Misty Knight's apartment, who was the apartment that Jean Grey lived in when she became the Phoenix the first time. So Misty Knight, X-Men adjacent. So they show up expecting, like, Misty was like, hey, if you ever need a place to crash, you can crash at my place. And so they show up, but Misty's not there. It's her new roommate, Harmony Young. And she's like, who the hell are all you guys? But then she sees Colossus and Nightcrawler, and she's kind of charmed. So she's like, you guys can hang out. Loans some clothes to Kitty and Aurora because they need to go visit Kitty's parents. which is like why they're in the city at this point, because I know they just like got back from space and the whole beginning of the Brood saga. Then it cuts to Rio Diablo, where Scott and Alex and Lorna are hanging out with Corsair. And so like Scott and Alex are excited to be seeing their father, and he's basically like, hey, I'm thinking about going to space again because I haven't been on Earth in 20 years, so I'm 20 years behind on Earth customs, but light years ahead regardless. This isn't like a Cap situation where he's a man at a time. He is legitimately like, I don't feel comfortable here. Then it quickly cuts back to Misty's apartment with Harmony Young. She's hanging out with Nightcrawler. Kitty calls, but she's back from going out with her parents. But Aurora has not returned, so this concerns everybody. And we see an Aurora bleeding in an alley, and then it turns into a medical drama where some doctors are trying to figure out what's going on with her. The X-Men show up, and Aurora, even though she has this throat slash, is suddenly fine. And so Kitty is the one that starts to notice that, like, hey, she doesn't like sunlight, and there's some stuff going on. So she takes off to try to go take care of this because Storm is acting weird. And that's when Dracula shows up. And this is all great. This is the start of the history between Aurora and Dracula, and it's just good fun. Sienkiewicz's art is kind of perfect for this. Kitty shows up, drawn on a cross, dressed up like a female Indiana Jones to take on Dracula, and he kind of backs away from the cross when she shows up, figuring out what's going on, but realizes the cross has no power because she's not a believer. But then he goes to grab her, and her Star of David necklace burns him because she is a believer. It just needed to be specific to her beliefs. So she basically tells the X-Men, like, hey, Aurora's been taken by Dracula, and like Wolverine doesn't believe her at first, but Kurt's like, hey man, like we see a lot of crazy stuff. You should probably believe her. And so they take off, and it's a fun Dracula versus the X-Men story. Nightcrawler is the one that messes him up the most because he is obviously the most devout in his faith. That's fun. And finally, like, Kitty's sort of love for Aurora kind of pulls Storm out of this. She attacks Dracula, and basically he is so wowed by Storm and her goddessness that he's basically like, I'm leaving you alone, but if we ever cross paths again, hinting at, an annual that might be coming up. That wouldn't be the case. So Kitty and Storm hug it out and are reunited, and it's great. And then Moira McTaggart calls all of a sudden to let the X-Men know that Professor Xavier has taken a turn for the worst. So that is where my books would have left me at April 6, 1982. And I would be chomping at the bit to get back on my bike and pick up the books next week to see where the Defenders and Fantastic Four and Iron Man and Marvel Team Up are at. So that's what's coming in the next Cornerbox Classics. There's Peter Parker, Spectacular Spider-Man, I think, in there. 82 was a good year for comics, man. Even stuff where I'm like, this wouldn't be something that I'd be, like, I had a rough new comic Wednesday last week where when it all shook out, there was like one book that I liked out of 6 that I picked up, and it's making me reevaluate some things pretty hard. And this is sort of helping in that regard, because it's like I look back at the absolute quality and I'm just like, man, there needs to be some reevaluation going on. So that was Cornerbox Classics. Let me know if you enjoy any of these titles in the comics, if any of these stand out as favorites, if I'm wrong about Rom, if you're disappointed in my lack of Incredible Hulk knowledge, please feel free to call me out. And if you're new to the channel, if you have stumbled upon this, it would be great if you subscribed. I'd appreciate it. And yeah, we will be back on Wednesday with fingers crossed that we will be able to bike. Weather has not been the most cooperative, but I am hoping that we can get up there. So thanks for tagging along. Hopefully you enjoyed these Cornerbox Classics, and I will see you for a new Comic Book Wednesday ride in a couple days. Thanks for taking this ride with us. Bye.